morning to all of you. I'm delighted to see so many colleagues here and friends who have joined us today for this Our Story One concert. As many of you know, in June 2023, the Baha'i international community launched a year-long campaign called Our Stories One, commemorating the 40th anniversary of the execution of 10 Baha'i women in Iran in 1983. And I'm glad to see so many colleagues who have actively participated in this campaign here today. Today, this event and performance honors these 10 Baha'i women who chose to give up their lives for their commitment to justice and equality. Before moving on to the program, I'd like to remind you to silence your phones. You've also probably noticed that audiovisuals are being taken from the event. If you happen to be uncomfortable with that, please let me know or the colleagues you have seen at the reception. I invite you to, yes, distress and me reading once again my life. The musicians have also told me that you are welcome to take photos and videos at the event, and that they invite you to use the hashtag OurStoriesOne to share it on social media and raise awareness on the subject. About the musicians, so we're most glad to welcome Luke Slott and Jasmine this evening for this special occasion. Luke Slott is a singer and songwriter from Ireland who was born into a family of artists, with his father being a trumpet player and his mother an actress. He, in this way, developed a taste for music at a very young age. He began to write music in his teenage years and quickly signed up for Sony Music. But later, he set out on his own as an independent artist. And as a solo artist, he has released several albums and has traveled extensively, giving concerts and workshops in over 20 countries, from Europe to North America to the Middle East and the Pacific Islands. This evening, Luke is joined by Brazilian-American artist Jasmine Howard, which we're very happy to have with us this evening, who has collaborated with Luke on various projects in the past. We have the chance to have a very special duo and very complementary voices for this evening's performance. So, as you know, this event is hosted jointly by the member of the European Parliament, Mr. Leopoldo López Gil, and the Brussels office of the Baha'i international community. So to give you an overview of this evening's program, we'll start with a few remarks by member of the European Parliament, Mr. Leopoldo López Gil, followed by remarks by the representative of the Baha'i international community Brussels office, after which we'll have the performance. And don't worry, afterwards there'll be dinner, there'll be a reception. So don't worry too much about that. But without further ado, I will give the word to Mr. López Gil for some introductory remarks.
Thank you all. I'll try to be very brief, because we didn't come to hear, we came to listen to Our Stories One. It is an honor to be here today, opening this concert called Our Stories One. It is inspired by the 10 Baha'i women of Shiraz and dedicated to the people of Iran. Together with the fantastic Irish musician Luke Slott and the Brazilian artist Jasmine, who will be sharing songs and stories of heroic Iranian women and men, past and present, inspired by the 40th anniversary of the 10 Baha'i women who in 1983 gave their lives for their commitment to freedom of beliefs. In the story is only one tour. It is dedicated to the people of Iran in general, who continue to strive for freedom and equality for all. As we gather today, it is essential to reflect on the profound significance of human rights, and it's imperative that we focus at least in one of the most fundamental freedoms of all, religious liberty. Freedom of religion is not merely a legal concept, it is a cornerstone of human dignity and societal harmony. It is the recognition that each individual has the inherent right to practice their beliefs without fear of persecution or discrimination. History bears witness to the profound impact of religious intolerance, where communities have been torn apart and lives have been shattered by bigotry and oppression. Yet, in the face of such adversity, the resilience of human spirit has always prevailed, championing the principles of tolerance, understanding, and respect. In embracing religious freedom, we acknowledge the inherent diversity of human belief systems and affirm the right of every individual to follow his conscience. We recognize that the true freedom does not lie in the conformity, but in the celebration of the differences, in the richness of every and one tradition, and in the dialogue that fosters mutual understanding and cooperation. In Iran, the Baha'is have been subjected to persecution, discrimination, and violence, not now, for decades. Despite their unwavering commitment to principles of peace, unity, and service to humanity, they continue to face relentless oppression at the hands of the Iranian authorities. One of the most brutal examples of this persecution is the case of the 10 courageous women from Shiraz who were executed due to the faith. Those women, whose only crime was their belief in the Baha'i faith, were subjected to arbitrary arrest, interrogation, and murder solely because of their religious affiliation. Their plight was not only an incident isolated, but rather emblematic of a broader pattern of persecution faced by the Baha'i community in Iran. From arbitrary arrest and imprisonment to the denial of basic rights, such as education and employment, Baha'is are systematically targeted and marginalized solely because of their religious beliefs. As we gather here today, we cannot turn a blind eye to the flagrant violation of human rights and religious freedom in Iran today. We must raise our voices in solidarity with the Baha'is and demand an end to the persecution and discrimination of their faith. Let us call upon the Iranian government to uphold its international obligations to respond and protect religious freedom for all citizens. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Let us stand united in the face of oppression and work endlessly and tirelessly to ensure that the rights and dignity of all individuals, regardless of their faith, are upheld and protected. And thank you for being here. Thank you.
On behalf of all of us, I would really like to express our deepest gratitude to both dear Luke Slott and Jasmine, but really very much also to you, dear Mr. López Gil. Your support to the Baha'is throughout your mandate, and really to human rights in general, has been exemplary. And it remains a continuous source of inspiration, I think, for all of us. Tonight, we're here not simply to commemorate the execution of 10 women, 7 out of which were in their 20s. One 17 years old. 2 of them, a mother and a daughter. We're not here to just commemorate their brutal hanging, one by one in a single night in Shiraz, forced to watch the hanging of the next one. We're not just here to commemorate these events, as worthy of commemoration as they are. Tonight, we're here to honor that our story is one. That our story is one has several meanings. As a statement released jointly by a group of Nobel Peace Laureates, among which Shirin Ebadi. So beautifully said, and if you allow me, I will quote it. Their tragic execution, while heart-wrenching, sparked a flame of resilience that continues to burn brightly in the hearts of Iranian women today. Through the continued lived story of thousands of young women in Iran who are tirelessly fighting for equality, we witness the legacy of the 10 women of Shiraz. Their sacrifices have inspired a new generation of women. The story of the resilience of Iranian women in the face of persecution is a shared one, transcending boundaries of faith and background. And the statement continues saying, the Our Story is One campaign honors not only the memory of these 10 courageous women, but also the countless others who have followed in their footsteps. These women, regardless of their religious beliefs or backgrounds, have dedicated their lives to the pursuit of justice and equality. Our story is one, however, goes beyond honoring the resilience and the sacrifices of the women and men in Iran. Our story is one, pays tribute to what these 10 women believed and what they were ready to give their life for. They believe that humanity is one. They believe that the story of humanity is one. That wherever we live, wherever we come from, whatever our background, whatever our belief or faith, we have a collective destiny. We have collective aspirations. We also have collective challenges. And therefore, we have collective solutions. Solutions that we as humanity need to devise jointly. Our story is one means that each single human being is endowed with capacity and has an irreplaceable role to play in the devising of these solutions. It means that each one of us, each community, each place, each continent, with all our diversity and the rich tapestry of experience and knowledge we possess, each one of us needs to be allowed and be able to be a protagonist in the shaping of our future civilization. On behalf of Mr. López Gil and the Baha'i international community, we wish you a beautiful concert.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you all very much for being here. Both Jasmine and I are deeply honoured to be invited to Brussels for this very special event. And before anything, we would both like to express our deepest thanks to Mr. López Gil and to the Bahai International Community Brussels office for having us here today. As you see, Jasmine and I are at the front of the room, but the reality of an event like this is that there are many people behind the scenes working very hard to prepare this event and to welcome us all. And so we would just like to say a very special thanks to the whole team for opening their doors this evening and for welcoming us to this event. And I think I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels this way, but I would just like to thank Mr. López Gil for his very moving introductory remarks. It was a great honor to collaborate with you, Mr. López Gil, and thank you very much. So, as Rochelle mentioned, this concert is part of this campaign. This Our Story is One campaign, which really has two purposes. The first purpose is to honor the legacy of these 10 remarkably courageous women who gave their lives 40 years ago for the sake of freedom of belief. And the second purpose of this campaign, as Rochelle mentioned, is to express solidarity and to express a vision of oneness and a vision of a united human story, both backwards into history and forwards into the future. And so, Jasmine and I would like to begin with a song on a note of hope for the future. We know that looking at the world today, which is so ravaged by war and inequality and injustice and corruption and suffering, it's often very easy to be hopeless, the state of the world. But I hope that our program tonight will leave you with a sense of hope and a hopeful vision for the future. So we'd like to begin with a song about keeping faith in a better future for all of us, in a future where there is true peace and true understanding, something that is a challenge for all of us to believe in, especially when we look at the world and it sometimes seems like a barren wasteland. So this song is called Wasteland, and it's about hope for the future. You promise, I don't wanna break it, but you know I found it hard to believe we had what it takes. Though I may be wrong in all my speculations, I can still recall the pain. We stood with our souls star-made. You made me a promise, and it's not like you to fake it. But you know I found it hard to conceive the time it would take. You may prove me wrong with all your new creations. I can still recall your face when you told me one day we'll make it. This wasteland will blossom like heaven, and all the colors we've painted here will merge into one, and there will be no religion as we know it today, no more endless division, just love, hope, and faith in a wasteland, in a wasteland. The wasteland. I saw you down at the landfill with the photographs you sold. You loved them like a child, though your face was getting old. And all we have is a dust heap. We'll make it beautiful yet. When the breeze of spring comes back cold winter we'll forget. This wasteland will blossom like heaven, and all the colors we've painted here will merge into one. And there will be no decision, and we won't all make as one. No more senseless collision when these fickle wars are done. No, there will be no division, sex, color, class, or creed. Just one world to belong to, and one color blood to bleed. In the wasteland, in the Thank you very much. So, tonight's concert is going to be slightly unusual in that we're going to go on a kind of a musical journey together. This journey will last about an hour and 10 minutes, and it will consist of songs and stories, some poetry, and some readings. And what we're going to do is we're going to travel, we're going to journey our way towards the story of these 10 women and their execution 40 years ago. But to begin this journey, it's very important to understand that these women were executed for their beliefs in the context of an extraordinarily rich heritage of freedom of belief and human rights. And so as a point of departure for our journey, I wanted to ask if anyone here has ever by chance been to the British Museum in London. Just raise your hand if you've ever been to the British Museum in London. Okay, oh, many of us. Okay, so if you've ever been to the British Museum in London, you will no doubt have seen on display there one of the most significant artifacts of the ancient world. Large stone cylinder known as the Cyrus cylinder. And on this stone cylinder there is an inscription which has historically been referred to as the world's first charter of human rights. And it was created by an Iranian whose name was Cyrus the Great, or as Iranians know him in their own language, Kourosh. And Kourosh, Cyrus the Great, was the founder of the ancient Persian Empire, the predecessor of what we know today as Iran. And to this day, Cyrus the Great, Kourosh, is regarded by people of many different nations and many different cultures around the world as one of the most noble kings who ever lived, because of the fact that he created an empire that was explicitly built on the principle of freedom of belief. Under Cyrus, people were free to practice their religions, to express their beliefs, and to preserve their own cultures and languages. And the king himself would protect the people from anyone who tried to violate those rights. So, long before the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Geneva Conventions after the Second World War, an ancient Iranian king proclaimed across his empire the first charter of human rights. And the heritage of Cyrus the Great has been described as a heritage of human understanding, a heritage of compassion, of courage, of tolerance, and above all, of human liberty. So a beautiful, admirable heritage, not only for Iran, but for the whole world. Well, by the 1970s, over 2,500 years had passed since Cyrus had created his empire. And Persia, or Iran as we know it today, had been through a history of extraordinary ups and downs. Dynasties had risen and fallen, religions had been born, people had conquered people, and an extraordinarily rich heritage of art and literature, philosophy and medicine had blossomed out of Iran, a heritage that actually continues to exert its influence in the world today. In fact, I read recently that the #1 best-selling author in America is in fact the English translations of an Iranian poet, Rumi. So this legacy is felt all over the world. But also by the 1970s, the people of Iran had watched many of their leaders throughout history drift away from the example of Cyrus into corruption and sometimes even tyranny. And in 1978 and 1979, certain groups of people in Iran rose up in a revolution to overthrow the Shah, the king of Iran. But the result of this revolution was not what most Iranian people were hoping for. Because when the Shah finally accepted defeat, a power vacuum appeared in Iran like never before. And this power vacuum was swiftly and ruthlessly filled by fanatical religious extremists who claimed that they possessed divine authority to rule over the people. And these extremists, it seemed as if the very memory of their ancestor Cyrus had simply vanished from their minds. From their pulpits, they proclaimed that the mere notion of human rights was a Western concept, incompatible with their society. From 1979 onwards, they began to persecute, harass, and arrest journalists, lawyers, teachers, musicians, artists, and place them in prison. And there's a beautiful poem, a short poem by the Iranian poet Halu about this strange reversal of fortunes experienced by the people of Iran in 1979. And Sophia is going to share with us this short poem by Halu. Thank you, Sophia.
February 1979. Amidst the chaos of the revolution, a prisoner wrote on the wall in Eton prison, "People, be aware. Very soon the Ayatollahs will topple the monarchy and prisons will turn into universities." Many years passed and I kept asking myself, what about all those nice promises? When is it going to come true? Then I landed in prison and I saw with my own eyes students and scholars everywhere. That's how the prisons turned into universities.
So our next song is dedicated to the great heroes of Iran today who have not forgotten their ancestor Cyrus, and who continue to strive to defend human rights for their people, often in the face of great danger to themselves. This song is dedicated to the great lawyer Nasrin Sotoudeh, to the Nobel Peace Prize winning defender of human rights that Rachel mentioned, Shirin Ebadi, and also to Narges Mohammadi, who you may have heard also was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for her work defending human rights. So in this song, Jasmine and I ask a question. The question is, where did all the lovers run to? Meaning the lovers of truth and beauty and goodness. Where did they go? We ask, where did all the heroes die? And then the answer comes, look at the prisons. You'll find them there. This is called In the Shade of Paradise. There is a prison cell, an old Tehran, and within a woman there, a child grows strong. There is a prison of bones unknown in old Shiraz, and from its invisible floors of stone, a warning roll. When the towers in the sky fall, and the river changes course, and the powers up on high give in to the call, you will hear the people cry. Where did all the lovers run to? When did all the heroes die? Didn't you look behind these walls? They live on a plain of sacrifice. There is a rose garden in Esfahan, and in it the nightingales sing their midnight song. When the towers in the sky fall, and the ocean pulls its tide, and the powers up on high give in to the call, you will hear the people sigh. Where did all the lovers run to? When did all the heroes die? Didn't you look behind these walls? They live on a plain of sacrifice. What did all the mothers come to? Where do all the sisters hide? Didn't you look behind these veils? They live in a sea of tearful eyes. Where did all the lovers run to? When did all the heroes die? Didn't you look behind these walls? They live in the shade of There is a prison cell in old Tehran. So in 1979, the people of Iran entered a new chapter of their history. And today, some 45 years later, many Iranians consider this chapter to be one of the darkest in the history of their land. Apart from targeting people like journalists and artists, teachers and musicians, women, half the population. The new authorities in Iran began also to persecute the religious minorities in their country. Iranian Christians and Jews, Zoroastrians, Muslims who disagreed with the new government were all harassed and targeted. Among all these groups who were targeted by the new leaders, there was one particular community towards whom the new government was particularly vicious, and that was Iran's largest religious minority, the Baha'i community. And we're not going to go into details about Baha'i faith itself tonight. That's not the reason that we're here. But there is a short saying by Baha'u'llah, who was the founder of the Baha'i faith and who was himself Iranian. He said that it is better to be killed than to kill. And I think this little saying of Baha'u'llah really speaks volumes about how the Baha'is in Iran have responded to the cruelty that they have received from their government. From 1979 onwards, as the new government gained more and more power, Baha'is all over Iran were arrested and imprisoned. Their homes and workplaces were set on fire. Even their holy places and cemeteries were desecrated. Laws were enacted to officially dismiss Baha'is from their jobs and expel their children from schools and universities. But the response of the Baha'i community in Iran to this persecution has been unusual. In fact, it has been so unusual that it has been studied by academics and government institutions around the world, and it has been given a special name, constructive resilience. And one example of this constructive resilience is the way in which the Baha'is in Iran have responded to the denial of their right to education. It's a very interesting story, and it goes something like this. As more and more Baha'is were fired from their jobs and expelled from universities throughout the 1980s, the young people in the community were growing up without any prospect of a future, a life, without any hope of fulfilling their dreams. And so in response to this situation, a number of teachers and professors began to voluntarily offer secret university-level classes to the young people in the community. And these teachers would smuggle textbooks into the homes of families around Iran, and they would sit at the kitchen table with these young people, and they would deliver to them university-level courses in architecture and engineering, medicine, psychology, sociology, and all sorts of things. And these young people fully understood that there was no hope of gaining a qualification, no hope of ever having a job. And yet they kept coming back to these classes simply for the love of learning and the love of intellectual development. And this secret network of teachers and students around Iran developed into something that was, for all intents and purposes, a kind of underground university. It became known as the BIHE, the Baha'i Institute for Higher Education. Well, after some years, the Iranian government found out about the BIHE, and they launched a systematic campaign to destroy it. Homes were raided, textbooks were confiscated, teachers and students were arrested and thrown in prison. Everything was done to shut down BIHE. But by the time the Iranian authorities had found out about it, it was too late, because so had the rest of the world. The BIHE had already begun to attract attention from universities around the world and had become recognized on the international academic scene for its outstandingly high levels of education. And actually, to this day, over 110 universities around the world have actually granted scholarships to students from the BIHE and have brought them from Iran to their campuses to help them develop their studies and further their careers. And in fact, Jasmine and I on our travels have been very privileged to meet many of these students in different parts of the world. Perhaps you have some here in Belgium who began their studies in secrecy in Iran and are now living flourishing lives, contributing to the countries in which they live and in their chosen fields. And so we would like to dedicate this next song to the teachers and students of the Baha'i Institute of Higher Education in Iran. This is called 100,000 Veils. The city of Tehran, where 7 candles burn. Follow me, all you who claim to be possessed of charity, down to the crimson sea. 100,000 veils have covered the sun, and darkest clouds have blocked and blackened the blue sky. Did you hear the fate of those who educate, who even in the grave find no respite from hate? Have you seen the youth who gave their lives for truth? That girl who kissed the noose and welcomed all abuse. 100,000 suns have fallen to earth, with blasts that block the ears from hearing the new song. 100,000 veils have covered the truth. How many mothers' cries are lost in the tumult? There is no war to fight. You have no sin. wrongs seem right? Does it so offend to walk this world to mend, to walk in hope to the end, to see each man a friend? Calm down and walk these roads around the cities of Iran, which boast so much to man. Thank you very much. So I am sure that you are all no doubt aware of the Woman Life Freedom movement, which began in Iran about a year and a half ago and erupted into the global spotlight after the death of a 22-year-old Iranian woman named Sina Varaei, who died while in custody after having been arrested and assaulted by the police for wearing her headscarf incorrectly. And Sina Varaei's death sparked this nationwide movement about women's rights, more broadly about human rights in general, led by women, but supported by men and children too. Well, many of these women protesting for their freedom in Iran may well be aware that this movement for women's freedom actually has a rather long history in Iran and stretches back into the almost 200 years into the 19th century. And these women who are taking to the streets over this past year and a half to demand basic freedoms like the right to choose how to dress, these women have in their own Iranian heritage a great predecessor, an extraordinary woman who lived in the 19th century and whose name was Tahereh, which means the pure one. And Tahereh was a kind of a phenomenon of 19th century Iran. She was a gifted poetess, an extraordinarily erudite scholar. She was a philosopher, a theologian, a powerful public speaker. And Tahereh today is regarded by many Iranians, particularly Iranian Baha'is around the world, as an example of courage and commitment to women's dignity and freedom. And so I've written a song in tribute to this woman, Tahereh, who lived in the 19th century. But before I sing this song, I'd like to share with you a little story about Tahereh, and hopefully we can all feel like we get to know her a little bit before we hear the song. So for this part of our journey, we're going to travel back in time a little bit. So I'd like to invite you all, just momentarily, to close your eyes and use your imagination. And in our imaginations, we're going to travel almost 200 years back in time to the year 1848. 1848 was the year that became known in the history books as the springtime of the peoples, because 1848 saw this unusual cascading chain of revolutions and movements across the world for the betterment of society. Well, in that year, while many of these movements were taking off, an extraordinarily significant event took place in a little corner of the Iranian countryside, where about 80 people were gathered to discuss the beginnings of the Baha'i faith and what it meant. And an incident took place at this gathering in the Iranian countryside that shook Iranian society to its core. And that incident all revolved around this woman, Tahereh. So just to give you a sense of how serious this incident was, It's important that we understand that in 19th century Iran, Tahari, as was the custom in her time and in her society, and just like all the other women around her in society, had lived her day-to-day life with a veil completely covering her face at all times in public. And this was such a ingrained custom. In fact, it was such a part of the fabric of society that the thought of a woman ever showing her face in public was just absolutely unthinkable. Well, at this gathering in the Iranian countryside in the summer of 1848, Tahari, like a bolt of lightning striking at the very fabric of 19th century Iranian society, appeared before the gathering, unveiled. And this act of defiance sent such a shockwave through that gathering that people actually went into a state of shock, as if society itself was unraveling before their eyes. And there is a very dramatic description of this event, which was written by an Iranian man who was present at the time. And Roxana is going to share with us this account of this event in the summer of 1848.
Suddenly, the figure of Tahiri, adorned and unveiled, appeared before the eyes of the assembled companions. Consternation immediately seized the entire gathering. All stood aghast before this sudden and most unexpected apparition. To behold her face unveiled was to them inconceivable. Even to gaze at her shadow was a thing which they deemed improper. Quietly, silently, and with the utmost dignity, Tahiri stepped forward. Her unruffled serenity sharply contrasted with the affrighted countenances of those who were gazing upon her face. Fear, anger, and bewilderment stirred the depth of their souls. This day is the day of festivity and universal rejoicing, she announced. The day on which the fetters of the past are burst asunder. I am the blast of the trumpet. I am the call of the bugle.
Thank you, Ashley. So Tahiri was like a comet, blazed across the horizon of Iran almost 200 years ago, and set an example of courage, dignity, and freedom, particularly for women. In fact, and also set an example for the women of Iran today, who continue to strive for those freedoms. In fact, in response to the many death threats that Tahiri received in her lifetime, she once famously proclaimed, "You can kill me as soon as you like, but you cannot stop the emancipation of women." So for years, the authorities had tried to take down Tahiri, and eventually her comet blazed so brightly that the authorities put up with her. And in 1852, Tahiri was captured by military officers who arrested her and strangled her to death and threw her body down a well and covered her remains with rubble. And so I'm going to now sing this tribute to this extraordinary Iranian woman who lived almost 200 years ago. And as I play the opening chords, I'd like to ask Sophia to read some words of tribute to Tahiri.
Future generations, DNA present a worthy account of a life which her contemporaries have failed adequately to recognize. May future historians perceive the full measure of her influence and record the unique services this great woman has rendered to her land and its people. May the followers of the faith which she served so well strive to follow her example, recount her deeds, collect her writings, unfold the secret of her talents, and establish her for all time in the memory and affections of the peoples and kindreds of the earth.
Close all your books and enter this school. I'll show you the secret of a new golden rule. Lay down your letters and run to the field. Your sword in this battle is the tongue that you wield. Oh, tolerate, tolerate, you were the eye that saw far away, far away. You took my breath and my heart away on the day when the heavens did roar and the earth cried out for more. You were the moon in the cold winter sky. The rays of your mind, the solace of my eye. You were the blast to raise up the dead. The sound of your voice ever ringing in my head. Oh, tolerate, tolerate, you were the eye that saw far away, far away. You took the veil from my heart away on the day when the oceans did boil and the sun kissed the soil. Chase every demon, expose every lie. Welcome the day of a great sober sigh. Put on your dress for the wedding once more. Cast me a smile as you pass through the door. Oh, tolerate, tolerate, you are the wing for this broken lost bird. The one lonely letter that makes well a word. So God speed the day when your trumpet blast will be heard. And lo, the dead will rise. The ones who sow this veil, the lies will fall away before your face. Tolerate, tolerate, where do you lie? Beneath stones and rubble, or in the glistening of my eye. Tolerate, tolerate, where do you lie? Are you not the object of every man's sigh? Very much. So we would like to now draw our attention to these 10 really remarkable women that we are remembering this year on the 40th anniversary of their execution, and to whom the Our Stories One campaign is dedicated. This is Ezzat. I'd like to just briefly introduce you to each of them. Nusrat, Varaei, named after the great 19th century Varaei. Zari, Nakshi, Shirin, Sina Varaei, and Mona. These 10 women are people like you and me. They were living their lives, they were looking forward to their futures. Most of them at the time of their execution were only in their 20s. One of them was a mother in her 50s. That's Ezzat on the bottom left. Another one was Ezzat's 23-year-old daughter, Roya, in the top left, mother and daughter together. Many of them had been college students. Several of them were nurses who worked in the hospitals in Iran. And in the year 1982 and 1983, each of these 10 women were arrested, and they were charged by the Iranian government with a long list of crimes. Several of them were charged with the crime of teaching children's classes, something similar to a children's Sunday school, where children of a neighborhood come together and learn about virtues and good character, and they sing songs and play games and do arts and crafts. These children's classes are simply part of the service activities that my communities all over the world offer in their local neighborhoods. We have them in Ireland, I'm sure you have them here in Belgium. But in Iran, these classes for children were a crime. The younger women in this group were charged with the crime of simply being unmarried. But at the top of this list of crimes, the gravest crime of which they were guilty was simply believing in the Baha'i faith. And for this crime, without any trial or access to lawyers, these women were imprisoned for months, sometimes facing solitary confinement, and periods of physical torture. At times, these women were chained face down on tables and whipped on their backs and their feet, sometimes 100 lashings at a time with a wire cable. And throughout all this abuse, these women were asked again and again to renounce their personal beliefs. Again and again they were asked, and again, all 10 of them refused. And on June 18th, 1983, the orders came down from on high to bring their imprisonment to an end. And I'd like to ask Roxana to share with us some eyewitness accounts of that day, June 18th, 1983. Thank you, Roxana.
It was late afternoon on 18 June when the prison visit was over. Shortly afterwards, the guards called the 10 women and ordered them to board a bus. They were Mona, Roya and her mother, exact. Shirin, Zarin, Mahshid, Simin, Akhtar, Tahiri, and Nusrat. The bus driver who transferred them from Adilabad to the execution site was greatly affected by the bravery and strength of the women, and he recalled that moment as follows. I thought they were going to be released until we came up to the gate of the security check. That was where we found out that the ladies were going to be executed. All the way they were chanting, they were all cheerful and proud. Another witness was one of the executioners who put the rope around their necks. He told the mother of one of the girls, "We gave them the opportunity to recant up to the last minute. First, we hanged the older women, and then it was the turn of the young girls, one by one, in front of the rest. The youngest was last. We thought they would be so frightened that they would recant. We said to them, 'Just say once that you are not a Baha'i and we will let you go.' But none of them did."
Roxana. So for our next song, Jasmine and I would like to sing a short poetic verse which comes from the writings of Baha'u'llah. And, we really have no doubt that these women would have known this verse, probably by heart. And I think that these words of Baha'u'llah were probably a source of great inner strength, a source of great spiritual resilience throughout their ordeal. So the song is called "The Sign of Love." And as I play the opening chords, I'm going to ask Sophia to share some memories of some family members of these women before we sing the song.
From Zarin's mother. They let me go into the morgue. I never thought I would be able to carry on living after that moment. What I saw in that room and what I went through that day are indescribable. When I went in, oh my God, I saw 10 angels sleeping motionless next to each other. I knew all of them. I had been in the same prison with them. They were mother and daughter, Esad and Roya, lying there. What strength kept me breathing and on my feet, I don't know. I visited all 10 angels. I found Zarin, embraced her cold body, and put my cheek against her delicate and cold face. I kissed the mark of the rope on her beloved neck on behalf of all of her family. Her face looked natural and tranquil. From Mona's sister. The pain I felt that day was the same as when I heard the news of my father's martyrdom. I thought I would go mad. The prospect was so painful that psychologically I refused to accept it. Instead, I imagined the day when she would return home. Her footsteps, her laughter, her lovely voice. I imagined embracing and kissing my beautiful sister. I wanted to share the pain of our father's martyrdom with her, and I needed to talk to her about the painful days when they were all in prison. I wanted her to share with me the sufferings she had gone through. I had plans for us to be together and support our mother. So many thoughts rushed through my head in the moment when I heard the tragic news of the martyrdoms. I hoped that someone would come in and say it wasn't true. I was still kneeling beside Mona. It was a bitter experience, seeing my sister for the last time, without a glass partition to separate us. I kissed her cold cheek and said goodbye to her. With all my heart, I wished she would open her eyes and let me see her smile one last time. But I knew she was observing us from above with an eternal smile, and one teardrop would break her heart. Thus, my beautiful Mona, I will smile for the love you had for Baha'u'llah and humankind. May the world discover why you sacrificed your life.
Oh, Son of Man, for everything there is a sign. The sign of love is fortitude. The sign of love is patience. The sign of love is fortitude. The sign of love is patience. Under my decree, under my trial, under my decree, under my trials. Oh, Son of Man, oh, Son of Man, for everything there is a sign, the sign of love is fortitude. The sign of love is patience. The sign of love is fortitude. The sign of love is patience. Under my decree, under my trial, under my decree, under my trial, under my decree, under my trial, under my decree, under my trial. So you may have noticed in one of the earlier songs, Jasmine and I sang a line that referred to a girl who kissed a noose. That girl was Mona. Mona was the youngest of these 10 women. She was only 17 years old when she was executed for her beliefs. And you know, over the past year, through this Our Story is One campaign, as we've been learning about the story of these 10 women, I felt so deeply moved by the courage of these women. The courage to make a choice that most of us are never asked to make. But the courage of Mona is something truly extraordinary. On the night of their execution, on June 18th, 1983, when the 10 women were taken from the prison and brought to the public square, and they were to be hanged one after another, 17-year-old Mona insisted on being the last to go because she didn't want her 9 friends to have to experience the trauma of watching their youngest friend be executed. She didn't want them to see that. And so she insisted on going last. And the maturity of Mona in this decision is something it's almost difficult to comprehend. It's something almost otherworldly, because this decision of Mona meant that not only did she herself have to watch as her 9 friends were executed, hanged, one after another, but it also meant that when her turn came around, she had no one left to be there with her, no friend to look into her eye with love one last time. She had to go to the executioner completely alone. And when the executioner called her, Mona stepped forth as the noose was placed around her neck. She stood up tall and raised her head high, and she kissed the noose. And Sophia is going to share with us, Roxana is going to share with us a memory of Mona's mother about a conversation that they had shortly before.
She looked into my eyes and said, "Mama, I know I will be killed. I just want to tell you what I am planning to do. If you don't let me tell you now, you will lose this chance forever, and then you will be sorry that you didn't let me talk. Now, do you want me to tell you or not?" Haltingly, I agreed. "Okay, tell me." Mona held my elbow and started to walk. "You know, Mama, the place where they're going to hang us is probably going to be higher than the ground, so that they can put the rope around our necks. I will first get permission to kiss the hands of whoever puts the rope around my neck. You know, Mama, I think they will definitely let me do that. I will then explain that we, Baha'is, are not allowed to kiss anyone's hand except the hands of our murderer. That hand must be kissed because it will speed up our journey towards our beloved. Then I will kiss the rope I am to be hanged with. Then I will ask for their permission again and say this prayer." As she was standing in front of me, she closed her eyes, crossed her hands on her chest, and in a very spiritual manner, like a lover singing a song for her beloved, she chanted a prayer. Then she opened her eyes and said, "And then I will pray for the true happiness of all humankind, and I will say goodbye to this mortal life and live to go to my adored one. I looked at her but couldn't see her. I heard her but couldn't comprehend what she was saying. On the one hand, my emotional attachment to her was frightening me. On the other hand, she had taken me to a beautiful spiritual world. 10 days later, she was killed.
I've always been very struck by this final act of Mona's life. Why did she kiss the noose? What did this mean? And I think perhaps in that moment, the noose represented her sacrifice. It represented everything that she was willing to die for. It represented her commitment to her faith, her commitment to her principles. And just like her ancestor, Cyrus the Great, her unbreakable dedication to freedom of belief for all. So this next song has been written from the point of view of the noose. And in this song, I'm imagining the scene of the execution. The women are brought to the public square. The executioner is there. Perhaps there are some authorities there. I imagine the only being in this scene that can actually see the truth of these women, that can see their goodness, that can see their character, that can see the beauty of their hearts, is this little piece of rope. And this rope falls in love with these women and considers it the greatest privilege to be with them at this moment. And the noose longs for nothing but to die with these women. Cries out to them, "You told me that love is queen, and freedom is life. And I held you so close to me, and I longed for nothing than to die with you." So this is called "To Die With You." It's dedicated to Mona, Sami, Roya, Shireen, Tahre, Akshi, Nusrat, Izzat, Akhtar, Sini. I was there when the heavens bowed their heads and the earth stood full. With her eyes awash in red, I touched your hair. In a moment out of time, how could I ask for more? How could I dare demand a sign? I saw you there on the coldest prison mile. How did you stay so fair? How did you find the grace to smile? I kissed your hair while the moon was cleft in two. I had no need for prayer. Every thread of my soul was tied to you. We danced in 1,000 worlds beneath the brilliant blue sky, and the rays of the sun paled before the gleam in your eye. You told me that love is clean and that freedom is life, and I held you so close to me, and I longed for nothing more than to die with you. I was there when a million trumpets blew, all but the dead could hear, all the rivers
waters of life return to you. I touched your lips in a moment of despair. Your breath was a rose-scented breeze through the dead desert air. We danced in 1,000 worlds beneath the brilliant blue sky. All the wealth of the world was dust before the gleam in your eye. You told me that love is queen and that freedom is life. And I whispered so close to me, and I longed for nothing. We danced in 1,000 worlds beneath the star-sprinkled sky, and the face of the moon paled before the light in your eye. You told me that love is queen and that freedom is life, and you came so close to me, and I long for nothing more than to die with you, to die with you. Mona Zari Royal Shiri Tare Mashi Nusrat Zat Ahtar Simi Mona Zari, Goya, Shiri, Mashi, Nusrat, Ezat, Ahtar Simi, Mona, Zari, Goya, Nusrat Ezat Ahtar Simi.
Thank you all. So this brings our musical journey to a close. And you know, Jasmine and I were just thinking about what we could offer you at the end of this journey, something to take away with you from this evening. And you know, these were women who truly believed our story is one. They believed it and they lived it. And they dedicated their short lives to serving humanity in whatever ways they could, helping children, helping young people, educating people, serving in hospitals, or just simply being friends to one another. And so we thought that as an offering to you all, we could offer you a question to take home with you. Just a private question for you to reflect on yourself. And the question is, what do these 10 women inspire me to do in my life, for my community, for society, and for the world? And so we hope that this question stimulates some reflection for you in a way that is helpful in building a better world for all of us. And with that, I would just like to express our thanks Once again to Mr. López Gil for his very kind invitation to Brussels, and to the Bahai International Community Brussels office for bringing us here and for pouring so much work into this wonderful event. We're deeply honoured to be here, and we thank you all for coming.